virus that overtook him in the summer and resulted in his death in the fall meant that these were the last poems he ever completed. 6 of them were published posthumously in the New Yorker, the Paris Review, the Yale Review, and the New York Review of Books, and all 7 were subsequently published as Interior Skies, Late Poems from Liguria, a handsome fine press edition issued by Two Ponds Press in 2011. However, that edition was limited to 75 copies, each costing the best part of $1,000, with the result that these poems, like the 15 that weren't reprinted from A Summoning of Stones, have been unavailable to all but the most devoted of Hecht's readers. As well as containing the complete texts of A Summoning of Stones and Interior Skies, Late Poems from Liguria, this volume contains what I judge to be the best of the 100 or so poems Hecht left uncollected. There are 17 of these, the earliest dating from 1950 and the latest from 2001, and while 10 of them have previously appeared in journals, an 11th was included in an exhibition catalogue for the painter Dorothea Tanning, and a 12th was published by Boosey and Hawkes as the text to a song setting by the composer Ned Rorem. The remaining 5 are published here for the first time. My decision to include Hecht's last 7 poems in this volume needs no justification. That is not only because we know they were to form part of the poet's next collection, but also because, as I wrote in my foreword to Interior Skies, Late Poems from Liguria, in these last poems we see Hecht writing with undiminished authority, and in almost all of the modes in which he had distinguished himself. It is otherwise with my decision to include all 30 of the poems that went into A Summoning of Stones. Didn't Hecht once say that that collection was the work of an advanced apprentice, and later on describe its tone as too jaunty and distant, cool and artificed, and its debt to other poets, Yeats and Stevens in particular, but Auden, Lowell, and others, too obvious? He did indeed say these things, but he also made it perfectly clear that he was talking about the book taken as a whole, not only about the 15 poems that didn't get reprinted. Some people have nevertheless concluded that Hecht must at some point have repudiated those 15 poems. Why else, they wonder, would they have been so completely lost sight of? The first thing to say here is that Macmillan & Co., the publisher of A Summoning of Stones, chose to let the book go out of print, not Hecht. The collection had attracted a number of positive reviews, from Richard Wilbur in the New York Times, Louise Bogan in the New Yorker, Joseph Bennett in the Hudson Review, R.W. Flint in Partisan Review, and Arthur Mizner in the Kenyon Review, and Hecht was surprised and dismayed when he was told that it was to be remaindered, and remaindered with half the stock still unsold. More than a decade after publication of A Summoning of Stones, in the late spring or early summer of 1965, Hecht received a letter from Ian Hamilton, editor of The Review, a prestigious poetry magazine based in London, asking if he would care to have a 16-page pamphlet devoted to his work. Hecht was enthusiastic and in due course sent Hamilton a pretty big selection for you to choose from. That selection consisted of 15 poems from A Summoning of Stones and an additional 19 from The Hard Hours, the new collection he was at that point trying to finish. 6 months went by, and Hecht was still awaiting a response from Hamilton when he received an entirely separate approach, this time from John Stallworthy, poetry editor at another London-based publisher, Oxford University Press. Stallworthy had been greatly impressed by the poems of Hecht he'd seen in magazines and wanted to know if there was a typescript he'd be willing to let OUP consider. Hecht wrote to Hamilton straight away, informing him of this development, and letting it be known that unless the review still intended to publish a pamphlet of his poems, he would appreciate it if the 34 poems could be forwarded to OUP. 2 months later, Stallworthy wrote to Hecht, saying that he had received the 34 poems, and a month after that he wrote again.